Welcome to the podcast. All right, guys. Obviously, a lot of football talk that we're going to get to, but of course, we have to start with the most important thing that happened on Sunday afternoon, which was Canada beating the U.S. 2-0 in soccer. It is the first Canadian victory in a World Cup qualifying match against the United States since 1985. I know you don't watch a lot of soccer, Diante, but I can't contain my excitement. Canada is in first place in the group. They're pretty much guaranteed to qualify for the next World Cup. 4 points ahead of USA and Mexico. This team is unbelievable. I'm so excited. It's like everything. I used to go. I'd seen Team Canada play. There's so much heartbreak, so much just like bad soccer being played, and they're just good now. They haven't lost in this whole cycle yet. 5 wins, 4 draws. They have a good team. They're going to the World Cup. I'm gonna get to watch Canada World Cup, and that's like crazy to me. I didn't even think this was possible. And not only is it possible, but they might have the best team in North America and Central America right now. Your thoughts?
Well, what I can tell you is that I never play with Canada in FIFA. And all of my references to soccer are from FIFA and specifically from the Wayne Rooney Manchester United era of FIFA. So around the, what's funny? It's just funny how in that sport specifically, how quickly things can change because of how the money is. Because when I was dabbling with soccer, the team I liked was PSG, which is obviously it's an expensive team and they're usually pretty good, but they're obviously not the Paris Saint-Germain that they are now.
Yes,
just Ibrahimovic, who I really, really liked as an offensive player. That was probably my favorite offensive player in soccer at the time.
I think he's my favorite soccer player.
I was going to say, obviously we're talking about one of the best soccer players of all time. So I'm not bringing up some hipster deep cut by bringing up Ibrahimovic, but it's just funny now to see, I kind of close my eyes and open them and it's oh, well, PSG now is the one who just gets everybody, Yeah. So it's different. It's funny how quickly that stuff changes. The one thing I will ask you though is are there any Canadian stars?
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
You
probably have the best player in CONCACAF. That's Alphonso Davies. That's
a name I've heard. That's a name.
So he's plays fullback for Munich. And he's still young. He's 20 or 21. He's maybe the best fullback in the world, I guess. And he's from Canada. But this is the thing. And okay, so he didn't play this weekend. He got myocarditis from catching COVID, and so he didn't play these past 2 games, and he won't play against El Salvador. And they still won both games, and that's a testament to how deep the group has become when their best player in the world at his position isn't there. But I think one of the coolest things is, and I'm sure America is very similar in how this team has become. Team USA is pretty close to world class, right? Pretty close to the elites. They're not there yet. But I look at the Canadian roster, and you really have this mix of let's say European descendant people,
right?
With and I don't know the exact country that Alphonso Davies is from, but he is an African refugee, and he came to Edmonton.
I'm looking now, so he's Liberian.
He's Liberian,
yeah.
And you have all these guys. Jonathan David actually was born in Brooklyn. He'll play in the EPL soon. He plays in France right now. Born in Brooklyn, he's a Haitian immigrant. You have all these guys all this immigration team, and I think that's really cool. I think that's, and it's the point of immigration and open borders isn't to have a good soccer team,
right?
However,
it's a nice little side effect to have,
nice little byproduct.
Yeah, 100%
of all that stuff, and then you see. You see how all the cities, some of the big cities in Canada have grown in that. Toronto being the best example,
right? Obviously,
of a multicultural, huge multicultural city. And yeah, I'm just super proud. I'm very anti-nationalist in general, but when it comes to sports, I am hopping on any Team Canada bandwagon.
Oh, trust me, bro. You want to see some Star Spangled Banner happening. Let the World Cup come around and the U.S. actually have a shot to at least make the quarterfinals. I'm here belting out. Okay, America the Beautiful, top of my lungs.
All right, that's enough. That's enough soccer talk. Actually, PFF FC, PFF soccer
Yes, sir.
side, made their first few social media posts. You guys go check them out, because they're doing a lot of work. The same work that they do for football is getting done on the soccer side. All right. Anyways, football talk. American gridiron football talk. It is. We had another great conference championship playoff weekend. We now know the Bengals are going to play the Rams in the Super Bowl. Let's get through, kind of the four sides of the coin to a certain degree of what we saw on Sunday. Starting with the Chiefs' offense, I think that's obviously the biggest point of contention. The biggest narrative here is what the fuck happened to the Chiefs' offense in the second half of this game. They come out, they're scoring 21 points, and even probably should be 24 or 28, given how the end of the half ended with them on the goal line. And then first half, 75% success rate. The game was over, right? 21-3 or whatever it was, or 21-10. I'm not sure. I don't remember when the Bengals got that screen pass touchdown, but
It was a
the game was over.
Yeah, 21-3. Not only 21-3, but 21-3, and Kansas City literally just missed an opportunity to go up 28-3 or 24-3. So like that game looked over.
What the fuck happened in the second half?
Okay, so we'll start with Chiefs offense because obviously that was the dominating force up against the Bengals defense. And I kind of made a note of it as it was happening, something that we talked about with our good friend from Next Gen Stats, Keegan Abdu, because he obviously has access to a lot of really good information that he and his company do. And something that he noticed while he was watching the game, and I think that we kind of picked up on as the game really kind of progressed on, was Cincinnati just kind of gave up on the idea of any conventional pass rush, right? Like, especially with like Trey Hendrickson in particular. I think a lot of their issues, and this is something that happened in the Bills game as well, right? Like you cover things relatively well down the field, and then you just get Mahomes extending plays. And now, a play that was supposed to work out on a timing of 2.8 to 3 seconds is now in the 4.5, 5.5 seconds, right? Like trying to cover two Hall of Fame level talents down the field is just difficult to do, especially when you add in all the other speed that they surround them with between Pringle and Mecole Hardman, et cetera, et cetera.
And I'll add to that because I looked this up recently. We have a charting a data point about like when the quarterback moves off his line. First half of the season up to week 12, Mahomes was like 48.5 PFF grade when he's moved off his line. And then second half of the season, since week 12 to the end of the Bills game, not including the Bengals game, 84.
Right.
So like he had become old Mahomes again in being able to just extend plays and move and I think exactly what you're saying about like you get the 4-man rush. He's not getting sacked by the 4-man rush, and now you're like you said, you're naming all these great receivers.
So and to your point about like how he looked in the first half of the season, like that's actually how he ended up looking in the second half of this game, right? Yeah. Like in that first drive where they throw a little bit of the drop 8, well, quote unquote drop 8, they're really just using Hendrickson as like a spy.
That was Hubbard,
as a spy. So that way, like if Mahomes tries to step up before he escapes the pocket, you at least have some kind of body presence on him. And you saw that he made 2 good throws, right? You have the throw to Tyreek Hill that's contested, but it's obviously a catchable ball. Tyreek Hill misses it. And then on the third down right after that, you get the over-the-top sail route to Travis Kelce. It just goes off his fingertips. And at that point, there's really no reason to think that there's anything going wrong. I think Cincinnati goes down. I think they score in the next drive or whatever, but you're still up multiple possessions at this point right now. And then that's really where you could just kind of see things starting to devolve. I think that because of the way that Cincinnati was playing, it was a lot of like single high.
It was
like spy. So what do you see from the Chiefs when you get those single high looks? They get back to being vertical, but Cincinnati was covering a lot of those vertical concepts well. The over routes, you had guys like Trey Flowers, and this is something that they did the first time that they played, matching up on the interior against Kelce or slot receivers. You're getting like Jesse Bates and they're, getting their safeties rolling down and playing these robber positions.
Yeah, Von Bell as a robber.
Right. Being able to take away these crossers, and all of that. Like what they were doing was sound, but as Kansas City's trying to push the ball vertically, and now you have Patrick Mahomes trying to extend offense in order to give these guys an opportunity to work in the new windows. There's just not enough space, and they're not wasting their pass rush, because even the three guys that they are rushing are basically like pocket crushers. Like you're kind of sacrificing them, knowing that they're not going to affect the quarterback. You just want your spy to be able to pull up on Mahomes if he does escape. And that was really effective. It just threw them all the way out of rhythm. For whatever reason, we kind of noted this when we were getting ready to get on the show. Like Kansas City just kept getting more and more spread, which I understand, because if you're seeing single high, right, and the way that they've killed single high for all of Mahomes' tenure has been to max out on spread. We're going to space you out as much as possible. We'll add the running back to our passing concepts, go 5-man protection, and we are going to take you horizontally as far as you can go, and then hit you right in front of the safeties and behind the linebackers in those intermediate areas with digs, crossers, curls, comebacks, et cetera, et cetera. And it just wasn't there, right? Like it just wasn't there. Cincinnati made a great adjustment. On the RPO, they ran like a creeper where you're dropping Hendrickson out into that low window, gets in the way of the stick route that they were trying to throw the ball to. Obviously, you don't like to see that end up as an interception, especially to a defensive lineman, but I'm not really killing Mahomes for that, because I know he feels pressure on his back, and this is not some like full field progression where it's like, okay, the RPO on this side isn't here. Let me flip and just work it like regular quick game opposite, So like, that's just
he's got to dirt it. That's exactly. Really he's got to dirt it, but
you got to eat that, right? Sit on your butt or just throw the ball in the dirt, like give the play up and fight for another down. And we'll talk about this obviously when we get to Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFC title game. But that was really it. Like it was very small. It's very subtle. Like I think it's, in a lot of ways, even though it worked extremely well, in a lot of ways, I think it's almost overstated what the adjustment of maybe not sending 4 traditional or usual pass rushers did, as much as it was they covered really, really well from single high. In the second half, they got a lot of depth and were able to handle a lot of that vertical stuff. And Kansas City just missed on some shots. They kind of abandoned the run game for whatever reason, and that was enough to buy Cincinnati enough, possessions to get back in the game. What'd you see from like Burrow on the other end? Did they do anything different in the second half than what they did in the first?
No, I don't think. I mean, they probably did. You know what I mean? Like, it's always tough to like, even where we're not like, we are diving into the film, but at the same time, like, you got to really see differences, like minute differences in the NFL level. You got to chart this shit and you got to dive into it and look at it like that. And like, that's tough I wasn't even good at that at the high school level. So like,
well, yeah. And a lot of this is just like, it's so comparative. So it's almost hard, or not hard. I don't want to say hard, but it's really improbable to be able to pick up on some of the subtle differences if you don't have another point of comparison. Yeah. So like, for example, when we get to the NFC title game, there's a lot to take from that, because I'm looking at teams that have played each other 3 times.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at
who run very similar systems.
Right. Specific systems. So I'm like, okay, here is this play that was also this play in week 10 and also that play in week 18.
Yes.
Okay, here's how it worked then, now, and back then. Right. Yeah. Like, so that's a little different versus the way that this game played out, which wasn't entirely like what it was when they played each other, in the regular season. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if it's really as much of an adjustment, like in terms of like schematics. I think it's they
got a screen pass that went, just like in the Tennessee game. They got a screen pass to Chase in the Tennessee game. They went for 80 yards, and in this game they got a screen pass to Pirine that went for a touchdown. Like,
I mean, the game tying touchdown comes off of that interception that you throw to BJ Hill or whatever, where you only got 28 yards of,
which was like the same thing. The same thing that happened in the Tennessee game with the interception by Mike Hilton.
Right, exactly.
And I'm fucking pro Burrow, pro Chase, love those two guys. 2019 LSU, the best time of my life, blah, 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 blah. You watch the film, you cannot look at that film and tell me that team won the game. Back-to-back weeks now. They're so bad. And so much of that has to do with the offensive line. So much of that has to do with the offensive line. That is just horrendous. Adeniji starts at right guard. He's awful. They put in Jackson Carman. He's awful. They put back in Adeniji. Like it's as bad as you can ever imagine. And you find Burrow not wanting to stick around there, man. Like he is trying to get the ball off as quick as possible. Last step of the job, let me get the ball off to it's check down, a slant, or whatever. Like, I don't
right
want
now.
it.
Yeah,
Right now. And like obviously he knows there's certain situations where he's gonna have to draw back. And then the difference was he made plays. Like he's been doing the back half of this season is that he's making plays. He's being the Burrow from 2019 again, where he's making plays in the pocket, and you saw the two late first down scrambles that really gave them the game. When it was 21-21. But other than that, I mean, they had 2 chances on back-to-back plays on go routes that like early in the game. And they settled for a field goal on that drive. Like one T. Higgins tried to one-hand it, probably a penalty, whatever. Again, and then the other side of the field, literally the next play, Chase tries to one-hand it in the end zone. 2 pretty good balls, but that's the thing when you live in the one-on-one go route world. Sometimes good balls don't become catches because they're tough. And like we saw that all the time in the Chiefs game in Cincinnati in week 17 or whatever. And that just wasn't there because you had more too high stuff, more body presence by Tyrann Mathieu on Jamar Chase. So you didn't see a lot of that. You saw Burrow overthrow T. Higgins, I think, in the third quarter, or actually in the fourth quarter on a one-on-one play. So that's such a big part of their offense. They couldn't really get into that stuff. And then if you're not going to get into that stuff, you're living in a world where the play design takes longer.
Right.
You throw one-on-one outside, it's 1, 2, 3, maybe a hitch and throw, right? That's it. From gun. That's it. Once you start getting into more stuff, once you start running routes over the middle of the field, you're changing everything. Another time you're doing 5-step drops and you're waiting for stuff to get open. You're trying to throw with anticipation. And they don't have the offensive line to do that. Burrow can do that. The receivers can do that. They just don't have the offensive line. And I just don't know what really changed in the second half. Other than, I couldn't even tell you the big plays off the top of my head. Obviously, you
got the screen,
and
a lot of this is just like
the pick,
11 to 13 yard chunks at most.
Really. A couple nice cutbacks by Mixon.
Right, like you get a little bit of yak yardage from T. Higgins every once in a while, but like this Bengals team has been so confounding to me all year, especially from like the second half of the year on, right? Like. Because we talked about it in the first half while they were tearing off all these wins, right? Like, what happens to this offense when the variance goes the other way? And basically, they just keep like doing just enough to win. Like I don't really know how to like compartmentalize the way that I think about this team because I'm not coming off of that point that this has been a high variance team that puts so much on the quarterback. Like, I guess maybe my only takeaway is that I just got to give a lot of credit to Joe Burrow. For his ability to navigate the pocket, knowing what they are up front, right? Like we were kind of cracking up about them benching Adeniji, putting in Jackson Carman, and Jackson Carman immediately just shitting the bed twice as badly. Like that's where they're at, right? You're choosing between 2 horrible options up front. So like I don't know. I don't know, man. Like I don't know what to say about this other than like at the end of the day,
their butt. That's what it comes down
to. Like shitting 4-leaf clovers is really what it is. Like because
there's skill. Like and when you have skill and you have a little bit of luck, then you can
and they've taken advantage.
End up in the Super Bowl,
right?
And the defense, the secondary has played really well.
That's my takeaway right now.
Yes,
is that defensively they have improved. Right, yes. Like it's not great. They're not great defensively, but they do enough.
Turnover luck.
Right, you do enough.
And that's the thing. It's like it's the playoffs. Like you kind of have to.
That shit matters.
It doesn't matter how.
It doesn't matter how good, as long as you get the shit done, right? Man. Credit to them.
Like obviously, they're maybe a big time regression candidate going into next year. So you better win this game in 2 weeks.
100%.
Now, if they fix the offensive line, then it's a totally different story.
A different conversation.
Because now Burrow can play, and then you're fine. Like that's a different story.
Right.
But yeah, they just don't. And we've talked about this offense. It's not. So just I don't know if it's really peeling back the curtain enough, but like we were talking before the show, and we went up and looked up Zach Taylor's coaching history. And the funny thing is, everyone says, well, he's a McVay guy because he coached there for 2 years, and it's like. So I had this idea in my head, and we were talking to this with my best friend in the whole world, Steven Ruiz, after the game last night. And he was like, one of the funny things is like they all the McVay stuff that they do, they're not really good at it. And then we kind of start talking about that, like, well, it's not really like, I'm like, is this really even the McVay offense? Like,
Right.
none of
Right.
it
It's
is McVay
Brian
Shanahan.
Callahan is a OC, so he's obviously not connected. And then
And then so me and you went on the Wikipedia page, and it's like, no, Zach Taylor is a Mike Sherman, Joe
yes,
Philbin. It's
yes,
not McVay at all, and the offense represents that. Like, it is not. It's a very scattershot type of offense. They're doing a lot of stuff. It always feels like when something works schematically, they don't go back to it the next game.
yes,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. And they're in the playoffs and they're in the Super Bowl because of the skill that they have. I think at the skill position players and at the quarterback spot. I mean, I've said this the whole year. I don't understand why they don't run any RPOs. Like, you've put in so much of what Burrow had done in 2019 and what Chase was good at in
yes.
2019, but not the glance RPO.
Well,
Like,
that's the funny thing,
why?
right? That
Why?
was like last year too, right? It was like, okay, you guys, all of a sudden you're like this major empty offense because Burrow's here. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. Whatever. Joe Mixon can be a receiver too, so I don't hate it. Then they're like not really doing that this year anymore. But they do take the hey, if we get single coverage with Jamar Chase, we're just gonna take it because that's what Burrow and Chase like. But they're not doing the glance RPOs. To your point, they don't really do a whole bunch of condensed splits, which is something else that was like really big with 2019 LSU.
Yeah, man.
Um, but it's interesting. I do think that opens up what you're saying about Taylor opens up just an interesting conversation about the ways that we kind of clump these guys together in terms of like coaching lineage and their coaching tree because it was very obvious to the both of us when we pulled it up like oh well he only spent like a year with this dude
Yeah,
huh
17 and 18. Assistant wide
it's like
receiver coach and then quarterbacks coach.
huh okay 3 years in Miami well let's go look at what he did in Miami oh okay he's with Joe Philbin well what about before that well where do we know Joe Philbin from okay he's off the West Coast tree right so let's keep going back for Zach Taylor
Yeah.
he's at A&M who was he with at A&M Mike Sherman and it's like okay
Yeah.
light bulb goes off okay I see
And
I get the entire
the next
picture now.
the next thing is Zach Taylor played Big 12 player offensive player of the year in 2006 as the quarterback for Nebraska. Who was Nebraska's head coach? That would be, oh my god, I forgot his first name. It's Callahan Senior,
Yes.
bro, not Mike. Nah,
Brian
god damn it. No, it's not Brian. Is it Brian? They're both
might
Brian's.
be. Yes, I believe so. We'll find out in a
So
second.
in the failed, if our listeners will remember, the failed Nebraska is going to the West Coast era of that school. He was the
Right.
quarterback there, and with Callahan Senior as the head coach. So who's his offensive coordinator now with the Bengals? Well, it's Callahan Jr. Like, so
Right.
like, it all fits together, not with McVay Shanahan stuff. It fits together with, the West Coast type of stuff, and it's kind of similar. Obviously, the West Coast has evolved a bit to be a little bit more modern, but then that's just kind of what you see when you watch this offense, and it's just a lot of different stuff. It's disjointed. It's like siloed. The run game
Yes.
when they go under center is not
It is.
connected to like the run game,
It's not
anything
just that.
else.
It's not just that. It's so static when they go under center that you can see Kansas City just absolutely teeing off
Dude, those
every
linebackers
time
are
they're
hitting
under
shit so
center.
fast.
Yeah, like they are all just flying 100 miles an hour into the backfield anytime they're under center because like there's just not a lot of variety within this offense. And maybe and again like this might be me having to take accountability for my own like aesthetic preferences in football, right?
Mm,
Like maybe my issue is just that I have become so accustomed to seeing offense work a particular way that seeing this just causes whatever reaction from me. Obviously, I had to go through this with the Dolphins and their win streak in the regular season this year, right? Like just kind of not understanding. No, not that I don't understand, but just not being very fond of how something is happening
Look,
offensively.
buddy. I would put Joe Burrow in whatever the two OCs there in Miami were, Godsey and whoever else, any day of the week. I think that'd be a nasty offense for him.
I could see it. I could see it. I actually don't hate that. But yeah, like I going if we're trying to like patch this thing over between how they played against the Chiefs and how they played against the Rams, and we'll get to it after the NFC title game in detail. But like I don't. It's not like I can say like, hey, they did X, Y, and Z in the second half of the AFC Championship game. Okay, they found this thing. Expect them to rely on this thing. That's just not really been the way that they've operated at any point this year. I think it was nice that Burrow, like I'm crediting Burrow for this particularly, was able to understand that hey, they're going to play a lot of quarters, a lot of cover two. They're going to keep a guy rolled over the top of Jamar Chase. I have to work T Higgins between the numbers in order to be able to loosen up enough space to move the football. Like I think that's a credit to Burrow, especially given the fact that you're not going to get a lot of time, right? So if you're working stuff across the middle of the field and you know you're dealing with a bunch of pressure, that does put a high degree of difficulty on what you're doing as a quarterback. So again, credit to him. Um, but it's not like I'm expecting them to just work a bunch of T Higgins 2 Sundays from now. Like that's not my expectation. And they're probably not even going to get the looks that are similar to what they saw, this Sunday. So I don't really know what I still don't know what to do with this offense, but it's in the Super Bowl, man. So it's been good enough. I'm going to stop bitching about it because it's worked. Um, but I do think that ultimately, I think the story of this game, really, without trying to dunk on Patrick Mahomes, is just like missed opportunities for Kansas City. You have that halftime drive that ends at the 2 yard line because you get a swing pass, right? I don't hate going for another score there. I do hate throwing the ball backwards at the 2 yard line, even if it's a Tyreek Hill. If it's not like a screen where you got a bunch of blockers out in front of him, I don't think I love that. Um, the pick on the RPO we mentioned already, and then obviously that last fourth quarter drive that ends in back to back sacks. Like you've got to be Mahomes has just got to be better in a goal line and red zone scenario there. You can't just keep losing ground. You got to know when to eat, when to dirt the ball, when to eat it and just take an easy sack, and live to fight another play and not always feel like you have to win every last second of every last rep. I didn't love their red zone play calls either, given the way Cincinnati was playing them. So I think that they left a lot on the table that I'm sure they're looking at now and kicking themselves over. Um, but I mean, between that and then the pick on that hero ball interception in overtime, trying to force the ball into double coverage between Von Bell and Eli Apple, I think that was
Bates
uh,
and Bell.
Bates and Bell on the crosser from Tyreek Hill. Like even with that, that's Mahomes to me. That's a lot of, and you see this a lot when you start talking about like the air raid offenses, right? Like, hey, if you just play soft and coverage enough, the quarterback's going to get impatient. He's going to get greedy, and then that's when you take advantage, and that's exactly what happened. So disappointing. Don't know what to do with the Bengals, but they did just enough to be able to get this one done.
Yeah, I just went back and like really quickly ran through the Bengals drive that tied the game. No, sorry, the Bengals drive that gave them the lead 24-21, and then their drive in overtime that won them the game. And you have two Burrow scrambles, and you have three catch and runs on in breaking routes by T. That's it. And then in overtime you had two big mix and runs.
Hmm.
But it's like all that shit is from from within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, right? And like they had no way to create anything down the field. And again, that has to do with the offensive line. Like Burrow was not going to sit around there unless he absolutely had to on third down, which is when I think both those scrambles happened, and take a shot. Like there was no time.
Right.
And like the last play that led to the field goal that put them up 24-21, like on third down, you just see him. I mean, I don't think the it was a progression based play. I think it was mirrored concepts, but at the same time, like you just see him go hit the blast step at the drop, and it's 3rd and 10, check down, swing, and like you're not like, and they don't get anything, and they hit the field goal. They won the game, I get it, but it's like how can you do this for 4 games in a row now?
Hmm.
Since halftime of the Raiders game, they have been just awful on offense. And again, I keep saying this. I don't know what you do with that offensive line. It is that bad because Joe Burrow is a great quarterback and Jamar Chase is a great receiver, and they have two above average, way above average other receivers in T Higgins and Tyler Boyd, and they just can't. They can't get them the ball at all. They can't because of the offensive line. And yeah, and then going back to Mahomes on the other side, like this has been Mahomes this year where he's just the thing that made Mahomes so great for 3 years was that everyone always wanted to point to these sick throws and no look and blah blah blah, and those plays were unbelievable. But what sustained him was he was a savant in the pocket. He was an
Yes.
absolute savant. Like he took shit on time. He moved defenders with his eyes. Unbelievable eye manipulation, and and the accuracy, while it wasn't great, he would create windows kind of for himself. And then obviously having all time talents in Tyreek and Kelsey help, but like he just there are times this season and the defenses that they faced, that's their own fault for facing these defenses because they were too good basically.
Hmm.
It just he didn't they didn't have it, man. He didn't have it on time, on rhythm, and it bit him in the ass on the last play of the season. Not the last play because they got the ball in overtime, but
Right.
on the third down call where they should have scored a touchdown. I mean, Kelsey's open. That's it. Go through progressions. Um, they double Tyreek on the boundary, which means if they single Tyreek on the boundary, that then you probably work that side and you play a one-on-one with Tyreek and the corner or the safety, whatever.
Hmm.
But they end up doubling him, so you work your eyes, and the concept is your classic pure progression concept where everything is your eyes work in this case from left to right, and as you're scanning, routes are coming into your vision, in this case from right to left, and Kelsey's there on basically the third, or maybe you can call it the second progression. Kelsey's there. They're playing off the Mike linebacker. He is, I don't remember who it was. It was Logan Wilson or Pratt, but like he can't make a play on Kelsey because
Hmm.
they're playing with a Mike. They're not playing a dime backer like they probably, honestly, they probably should have at that situation. Um, and he doesn't throw the ball, and that's it.
That's
And it
it.
should have been a touchdown. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of him just trying to be a little too much. And I think that everything we know about Mahomes says you would expect it to become better next year, and he'll figure it out because he's figured out everything else in his career so far. And they still got to the AFC Championship game, which is crazy. But yeah, like there needs to be something there. There's something there with Mahomes this year, and I'm honestly very excited to see him going forward because I think like I was ready to write the piece, write the narrative that now that they took away the old Mahomes and the new Mahomes has become elite, it's
Right.
over.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think we're still
Everybody's
going to get that
cooked.
next year,
Yeah.
but there's still some things to work on. And this second half of this game showed kind of that.
Yeah. I mean, this is bad for Mahomes today, but great for Mahomes tomorrow. Like, and I think that honestly, for the way that the season tracked for this offense throughout the year, this was an appropriate ending. Honestly, like if
It
you
really is.
to think about like the ways that this offense would sink itself, this played out exactly the way that we could have told you it might have happened halfway through the year, before the win streak even happened. So, um, I think it's good for the structure of this offense as well to continue to have to find new answers,
Yeah.
right? Like I think that they're going to have to continue to grow. I think this year was a step in the right direction in terms of sorting out how to manage a spread run game, right? Like I think that they made strides. Obviously, this young offensive line was able to block up a lot of their stuff pretty well, particularly in this game. I wish they
Oh, it
hadn't
was
abandoned the run game.
awesome. They were
They were
awesome.
they were they were cashing in on 5, 6, 7 yard runs basically whenever they wanted, off of zone, off of counter, off of power. Um, I do think they flirt with the idea every year of playing more 12 personnel because people treat Kelsey like a receiver anyways. So to be able to get a little bit more multiplicity out of the offense, I do think that it's probably now in their best interest to let one of these super speedy receivers go in the name of getting a tight end that's
Yeah.
not Blake Bell, you know,
Yeah.
that can really be on the field for a lot of reps. I think that would help them a lot. So I'd be really interested to see whether or not they attack that in free agency. And then yeah, like a lot of this is just like, okay, now that it has been established and reestablished that defenses are going to remain committed to forcing you to play underneath, this offense needs to get back to some of the things that we know Andy Reid for, which is being one of the best guys in terms of quick games, RPOs, screens, easy completions, in the NFL. Like that, it sucks to have to step back to step forward after you've made all of these innovations and pushed this game to where it is, particularly with this franchise. But I do think that it's time now to maybe dig back into some of the old bag, and see if that at least throws enough variety in the offense to be able to get back to the vertical shots, right? Like it's just they're not in a place anymore where you can build the whole offense out of the deep overs for 35 yards every time you need a big play. Like I think those days might actually really be done.
Yeah, I kind of hope not because I liked watching
Right.
that.
I love it. Right.
Yeah,
I love watching it.
it's
But
so good. But
if a team like
yeah,
that, if a defense like the Bengals are able to take it away in a half as quickly as they did, then that to me is an indication that they need to have more in the offense if they
yeah.
still want to be able to do that kind of stuff.
I thought they did some really cool stuff pushing four receivers to the strong to what we
Yes.
call four strong
Mhm.
like receiver distributions to really fuck with the matching ish, even though they're kind of more of a zone drop team, but fuck with the matches
Right.
that the Bengals were playing when they played cover two and stuff like that. Anyways, let's move on to the NFC Championship game, and before we do that, I have to tell you that it is the last day to submit your questions for Western and Southern to win $2,500 to win a catering job up to $2,500 that Western and Southern will coordinate with you from a restaurant near you and have it delivered on February 13, 2022. You know what day that is. And don't, ask questions on westernsouthern.com/feast. So you submit your questions to Chris Collinsworth, who, we have a connection with. And yeah, I've been saying this stuff for 4 months now. Basically, westernsouthern.com/feast. westernsouthern.com/feast. And then check out the Chris Collinsworth podcast and Western and Southern's Instagram for the answers to the best questions. Again, $2,500 of food. Get on that, man. All right, NFC Championship game. That was a rough one. I locked myself in to trying to do the ad read from bottom up, and it didn't really work.
Didn't work out.
All right. Rams 49ers. Rams finally get the win over the 49ers after 6 straight losses to them. The thing I think about the Rams right now is they blew out the Cardinals. They really blew out the Bucks and just had this fluky turnover shit that happened that kept them in the game when it really should have been at some point it should have been 35, 38 to 3, 38 to 10.
Agree.
And this game felt like some more missed opportunities for them to blow a team out that they're better than. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they left. I mean, you very literally left at least 7 points on the field with a drop post. And I can't remember if it's the second or third quarter. You had some drop balls on third downs.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp and Odell both had some drops on third
Yeah.
downs. Which are things that you just have not seen from this offense, especially in the playoffs.
Tip ball interception in the
Yeah,
end
you get the
zone.
tip ball in the tip ball interception, on that initial drive, right, going down into the end zone, or the second drive of the game going into the end zone. So yeah, they left at least, I think, 17 points on the board. Now, in between that was a lot of elite defense from San Francisco.
Yeah.
So let me not represent this as though, LA could have just, sleptwalked their way to a win. That's not what happened, or that's not the case. Certainly not. But I do think that the Rams just had more on offense than what San Francisco could do defensively, and that's giving all the credit in the world to what they were able to accomplish in the first place. This has just been Stafford, man. I think I wrote about it, right after the Cardinals game or right before the Cardinals game. All year long, if you look at the key quarterbacking metrics, right, how you deal with pressure, how you deal with the blitz, how you deal with man coverage, how you are in third down, how you're on third downs, how you are in the red zone, all that stuff just directly translates to the postseason. He was one of the best at a lot of basically all of these categories throughout the year, and it carries over into situations where you see more blitzes, where you see more man, where the red zone means more, where third down means more. And a lot of this has just been his ability to navigate the pocket and be on time. He's been so good with his eyes. He's been so good with ball placement. Now that we got some of those dumb decisions and dumb turnovers out of the way, um,
Got a
and
little lucky because you tried to give the game away late, but yeah.
100%, 100%. Yeah, we still. I mean, there's still a little bit of it. Still a little bit of it in there. And I think that outside of Stafford, another thing that we can really credit is just Sean McVay's integration of Odell Beckham into this offense now. Like they have a legit role for him as that X receiver, unguardable in one-on-one situations types, and because of that, they now have enough reps with Stafford where you can see the confidence in the pocket, right? He's looking for Cup. He's looking at Higby, working through his regular progression. But you can see as soon as he takes his hitch because it's not there, he knows, okay, this is the coverage, and I know I got one-on-one on the backside with Odell Beckham, and there's no way on earth that you got a guy back there that can guard him. I mean, you saw that a lot on like conversion downs for the Rams.
I'm not to toot our own horn here too much on a Too High podcast. However, we were definitely one of the first people that I saw or heard talk about the backside dig with Odell Beckham, and that being the biggest
Mm-hmm.
problem with his time in Cleveland. He is an outside receiver, and they would put him away from the front side concept, running the backside dig, which is, depending on the team, in Cleveland, it was a pretty deep dig. Here with the Rams, it's a shorter dig. It's still like
Yes.
intermediate plus. Baker Mayfield would not throw him the ball even though he was open. He would not work his eyes back to the backside dig. And Matt Stafford trusts himself. He trusts the offensive line, which has obviously played very good this year, that he can, if it's not there in the front side, I know where my backside dig is, and I know I have the arm talent to get it there accurately.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him actually miss one early in the game, throw it behind OBJ, but other than that, he's been great. This, as they've figured each other out there, but that's it. And this offense, like, if you added, I don't think OBJ resigns there. I'm not sure what the Rams cap space is, but obviously you would imagine they're pretty up against the cap. So I don't know if they can afford to sign OBJ this
Right.
offseason. But if you add Woods and Cup, who are inside players, both of them can run routes on the outside, but you have those two inside players, and you get this OBJ person who is just super elite one-on-one on the outside. I mean, look, they might win a Super Bowl without Robert Woods, and honestly, like going forward, I mean that is such an unbelievable receiving core. But anyways, just sticking to this game, like that happened time and time again. He trusted him on the backside dig. He trusted it with a whole shot. He throws a really nice ball to Cup on like a 10-yard out route, and the corner comes down and makes a nice play, even though the Rams get a completion on it. This is in the fourth quarter, I believe. And they went to the sideline, and he looked at the iPad, and he said, hey, the corner's getting a little nosy. Corner's getting a little nosy. Even though they're playing
Mm-hmm.
quarters, corner's getting a little nosy. And they came back with it, saw it again, ran the same play, and he felt the trust to deliver the ball over top of the corner when the corner patted his feet a bit. That's the play where Beckham catches on the sideline and he gets the extra 15 yards on the hit and the helmet to helmet. Like there's the trust now is unbelievable between those two
Yes.
players, and that won them the game,
I
right?
mean, and on top of that, I mean, a lot of this is just like right, like adjustment and recognition. Like one of McVay's, and this is it belongs to Shanahan as well, and we'll get to it. Like one of their favorite concepts, anytime they need, 10 to 15 yards, is to run dagger, right? Like, and what dagger is, right? You get a clear out route up the seam. So whether he's running, just straight vertically or across the seam, so from one seam to the other, you're going to get some kind of underneath route. It's usually like a hitch out, meaning that you're going to stop. If it's zone, you're going to sit in the window. If it's man, you're going to stop and then swirl out, right, trying to expand the window. And then you get this like, it's different depths for different teams, but you're going to get something between like 12 and 16 yards more times than not now, especially in the spread era. Back in the day when it was like out of 21 personnel, you would see that dig run at like 18 to 22 yards, and there's still a little bit of that, but it's a little bit shorter these days from what I've seen.
Well, I'll
Um,
tell you why it's shorter. It's because dagger. and I know this just from watching the Saints because it wasn't a big part of their down to down offense, but it was a big play for them on third and XL.
Hmm.
Now you're getting that big deep in route
Yes, right. Yeah.
where now Dagger is part of everyone's offense. Well, not everyone. It should be part of everyone's offense. It's part of all the McVay Shanny guys' offense.
Hmm.
LaFleur runs it all the time too, and like so that's why the depth of it has kind of come down because you're running it everywhere now.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so you have that concept in what you were seeing from the 49ers, and this is something we talked about when they played Dallas and when they played Green Bay, is because of Warner, Greenlaw, Alshair, their linebackers, like they get so much depth and they're able to pass off so many things in that underneath to intermediate area that it's very easy for them to be able to cover routes that break at that intermediate depth, right? Which gives the safeties and corners a lot of relief in their coverages. So what do you see when you see guys getting all this depth? Sean McVay wisely says, "Well, okay, I'm not going to beat my head up against a wall here. Let's in the second half incorporate some screens." Now, all of them didn't pop big, but the ones that did happen in key moments, right? And now, what are you telling the defense? Is that you got to play tighter in coverage, right? Like you got to get bodies in front of these guys. You can't just give 15 yards of yak away. Um, on these third downs or these second and obvious situations. So then you get these pressures in these man cover situations against Stafford, and that's what he lives for. And that's where you see Cooper Cup on those like slant options, like you did in the fourth quarter for a big gain that sets them up for the go ahead field goal. That's how you get Odell Beckham on the backside of some of these concepts, running these digs, running these slants. Just running these kind of like one on one win routes that Stafford's able to find him on. Um, I thought that they ran the ball just enough. I'm sure we'll circle back to it, but a lot of the game plan for the Rams is an acknowledgement that they have demons on the edge in Ebukam in Bosa, right? But you still have to be able to run the ball if you're going to beat this defense. You cannot allow Fred Warner and that linebacking core to just play expecting to pass every time, right? Like that's not going to work. So what you saw was a lot of them just trying to get the ball in the perimeter, using wide receivers as blockers, getting guys pulled out, running bunches for duo where you can get a lot of body presence on the edge and kind of root that guy out. Like I thought a lot of what they did offensively made a lot of sense for who San Francisco is as a defense. And they were able to take advantage not of weaknesses, but just of different opportunities within the game to move the ball enough when they were missing those big plays because of drops or whatever the case may be. Like that kind of got them through in a way that they didn't in week 10, in a way that they couldn't in the second half of the week 18 game.
Yeah, I thought this was just a great game by the Rams, and it's like it's everything that you trade Stafford for, right?
Right.
It's like we don't
Right.
have to lean on. We want the run game to exist, and this is something we've talked about a long time. Like you got to find that balance. The balance is certainly not 50-50, but the balance is something to get a defense to know that your run game exists, and but then just straight drop back and just let Stafford pick everybody apart, and that's what he did. That's really what it came down to. It was either great defense by the 49ers or it was a great play by Stafford and slash Cup slash OBJ. Like
OBJ.
it was just
Right.
great. It was a great football game. It really was a great football game. Especially when you rewatch it, you see all this stuff. It was incredible. Let's move it over to the other side of the ball. The much talked about Jimmy Garoppolo. Um, I he missed players open. Sorry, again.
Nothing. There's not a whole lot else to it, man. He missed.
Same
He
concept they
just
always
missed.
run.
we
Just
were
missed.
we were laughing, right? Because much like the Rams, the Niners love running concepts on obvious passing downs where you get something breaking across the middle of the field,
Yeah,
right? Like that is
and
right
they'll
in
mirror
Jimmy's
them too. You
wheelhouse.
don't see that a lot.
Yes, yeah, like
Like double
they're
10 yard ins,
right.
speed digs or whatever.
Like that's a big part of their offense, right? And it's especially effective against the Rams because
Perfect.
the Rams are extremely, like I think, overcommitted to having the presence of five down linemen, right? Like, and they're outside, their linemen on the edge, quote unquote, or outside backer types, especially like Leonard Floyd, right? Like they use him like a jack backer in the 3-4 more times than not. Like he can rush, but you're going to use him to drop if you have Von Miller on the field too, which they do now, right? So you see a lot of them trying to play around with which four are coming or where they might be bringing the pressure from. But the issue with lining all these guys up at the line of scrimmage, and we talked about this with Staley last year as well, that he was really good at being able to negotiate some of those differences in, is like there's going to be space in this intermediate area that you have to account for. And if you don't, they're layup throws in terms of the windows that you're going to get as a quarterback. And Jimmy just missed. Like he just missed on a bunch of them. You know, we were pulling up clip after clip, especially in the second half when it was clear that Raheem Morris was like, "I'm all in on getting as much pressure on this quarterback as we possibly can, and we're just going to play like fire zone coverage, basically on the back end." He was just missing, man. Like the Rams weren't even really doing much to try to mitigate some of the space that was being created in those intermediate areas. Jimmy was just late. The ball placement was bad on a lot of these. I said before we got on that I felt like he left three pick sixes on the field. I think at least two of them to Jalen Ramsey, if not all three, if I remember right, like just from poorly placed passes. And then by the end, right, that's really where you see the pressure starting to get the best of them once it became clear that they just couldn't run the ball. And that is like a big thing that I'm crediting the Rams with coming out of this game. Like it was very evident from early on that all that run game shit that they were able to dominate the games with, early in the regular season, it just wasn't happening. And if they don't have the run game the way that they want, the 49ers, it becomes that much harder for them to dial up some of those designer plays for Deebo Samuel, especially in the backfield, right? If you don't also have to respect the threat of Elijah Mitchell. And it makes it harder to get the ball to Brandon Ayuk, which is another big piece of their offense on those in-breaking routes.
Brandon Ayuk should have went for 250. Sorry.
Yes.
That's on Jimmy. It's on Jimmy.
Anybody who has Game Pass, anybody who has access. I mean, you can probably see it on some of the broadcast copy, to be honest with you. Like, he's just breaking butt naked open across the middle of the field and just not even getting targeted on some of these plays. So in terms of missed opportunities, that definitely applies for the 49ers just as much as it did for the Rams. For you watching Jimmy, really within this offense, like, was there anything else that was obviously missed? Like I think that the conversation has come up now on a couple different occasions of them not being able to get like Kittle or check the ball in some of these games. Like were there missed opportunities for that in terms of play calling or within the play calls that you missed, or was it as simple as just missing those crossers?
Yeah, I think like you saw a lot of opportunities for. We talked about this before we got on, but what the Rams were doing. Well, I'm really just accentuating the point you're making about how perfect this 49ers offense is against what the Rams want to do on defense, because they give you so much space between the linebackers, between the underneath defenders in zone, right? Like that, it's crazy. And I'll just because I wrote about it this morning, that I'll give some more talk on that. But like their idea is, okay, we have we don't have linebackers, Troy Reader's whatever. We don't have linebackers. We don't really have like nickels guy. We move Jalen Ramsey inside, but then that leaves us a little weaker on the outside. So if Ramsey's outside, then we're a little weaker inside, et cetera, et cetera. Their safety play hasn't been very good, though. You told me you really like the play of Eric Weddle in this game.
He balled as far as as a run defender. Right. He balled.
So what ends up happening is they say, okay, well, where are our best players? Well, they all happen to play besides Ramsey. They all happen to play on the defensive line. So you have your two edge guys, that would be Leonard Floyd and Von Miller now. Your best player of all time as your three tech in Aaron Donald. Greg Gaines, who's replaced Sebastian Joseph Day, who's been
doing a hell of a job.
And another guy who's been very good, Ashawn Robinson, playing kind of the other three tech.
Quietly, yes. Like obviously you can't say that he's any more valuable than Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, or Von Miller. But if you want to talk about like it don't get much better, if that's your number 4 in terms of your defensive line, you got something special for real.
So they say, well, we got to play with these 5 guys on the field, and like none of them are stand-up linebackers. I mean, they're in a 2-point stand, but they're not like off-ball linebackers. So okay, well that's 5 taken care of. That's a 5-man front. You can, like you said, you can drop off Leonard Floyd, you can drop off Von Miller. Not something you want to do very often because of who those two players are, especially Von Miller. Okay. That means like let's take the Bucks. Great example. Bucks want to play with a 5-man defensive line as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they say who are our next two best players? Our two linebackers.
Right.
So we play a 5-2 box. All right. Well, you play a 5-2 box, you're going to have space kind of behind the linebackers.
Right.
And they want to play a lot of cover 3 and stuff like that. So, okay, that's their game they want to play. The Rams.
And what do you see them? What do you see them doing is making sacrifices on which edge rusher they're bringing. Right. Like they'll drop a guy off to the flat from the edge, very similar to the Rams. Right. Because the idea is, and this is something we talked about last year with them, is if you want to play with 7 and like truly 7 in the box, 5-2 look against the spread, it's only so many ways that you're about to cover this stuff. Like, I'm sorry, like there's really no other way around it. There's only so many ways that you can cover some of this crap if that's what you're committed to.
And go ahead.
No. Well, I was going to ask a question that's going to lead you to, I think, your ultimate point, which is if you line up the way the Rams do, and you're also trying to like keep this 1.5 to 2 high shell, who's left butt naked by his damn self
Troy Reader
in the middle of the defense? Yeah, he's got the hardest job in football right now.
It's crazy, and Staley did a pretty good job protecting him because it was his defense,
right?
And now Raheem Morris comes in, and it's not his defense, and I think he's done a pretty good job considering that. Like that's hard. Like, you're not supposed to do that to coaches, right?
Right. But yeah, a guy steps in and say, "Hey, you're going to run this last guy's defense." Like all of it.
Like that's crazy. Yeah. So, they want to keep in this 2 high world, and if they're going to play 1 high, the safety is coming late down, which still gives you the same kind of spacing you want, and it's perfect for the 49ers offense, and Jimmy just didn't make the throws. That is what it comes down to. And there's been games where he has made those throws, and they won.
Against the Rams.
Week 10,
Week 10, I think that a lot of it was made about the first quarter in the run game that the 49ers had. If you go back and watch, what won them that game was that Jimmy was absolutely axing the Rams on passing downs.
I said this before. It is my favorite offense to watch when he is on fire.
100%.
Right? Because he's not the worst quarterback in the league. He is pretty squarely average, which means he can have great games. He doesn't have a lot of
Shanahan knows his strengths.
Yes.
Like this offense is
exactly
built to his strengths.
And when it's on, it is so fucking pretty watching this team hit all those in-breaking routes and throw on time and all that stuff. But you just have too many games like this. You just have too many games like this where he's just not seeing it. And the Rams don't really adjust. They stay in that five-man look. And so let's head on to this matchup here, Bengals versus Rams in the Super Bowl. And this is what I wrote about this morning was, okay, I don't love the matchup is bad, right? For the Bengals offense, right? The offensive line is so bad. And
I'll say particularly in the trenches, it's really bad.
If you look at it at an individual level, the Rams defensive line versus the Bengals offensive line, it might be the most lopsided trench matchup that you can get in the NFL right now between any two teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, right? Like that's it. The best versus the worst, right? Basically. Okay. However, schematically, in the same way that we're talking about it right now, if you can keep the Rams in their 5-man unit and get 5-man rushes or get 4-man rushes where a defensive end like Von Miller or Leonard Floyd are trying to be on the line of scrimmage and then on the snap buzz out to a curl or a hook or something like that, which is very different than being an off-ball linebacker and playing the same zone.
Mm-hmm.
There are opportunities for Burrow in the quick game, which they do, to get the ball off quickly. So it's weird. It's a horrible matchup, man-to-man.
Yes.
It's not as bad, I'm not saying it's a good matchup, but it's not as bad schematically with the way that Burrow can get the ball off on time and accurately on slants, on stick routes and stuff like that. So it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough because you got to stay ahead of it so much. And you got to be in this weird balance where you're like, because if you start just throwing the ball on every first down, they're not going to play. Ashawn Robinson comes off the field
Right.
and they
And
play
then
four down,
it's gonna really be bad news for you
and
then.
it's bad news.
Yeah.
Like that scares me so much.
Yeah.
But if you can find this balance where even though the runs, are, you're not look, you're hoping Mixon breaks a couple of things, but like really, you're thinking about 2-yard runs here, just to keep them in 5 down.
I was going to say the worst piece of this matchup to me for Cincinnati is the fact that the Rams are also elite at stopping the run. If they were 5 down, but you could still like stretch them out, running outside zone or whatever, getting into 12 personnel and doing things like that, I would say, okay, maybe, you can maybe gum up or get enough like fake offense, right? Like we're stealing 4.5, 5 yards here. We just talked about how they don't run a bunch of RPOs, Cincinnati, when we were reviewing the earlier game, but this would also be a really good week for that, right? Take those, hey, T. Higgins, you're 6'3" or whatever in the slot, like box this guy out, catch this slant on first down and see if we can start to get guys rotating down. Like, because big picture wise, and you were making this point, so to kind of reinforce what you're saying, the big issue for Cincinnati is the best version of this offense is vertical. The issue is that if the more vertical you are, especially if you're not running the ball all that great, the more you're inviting the Rams to say, "We'll just live in this 5 down world, and we're just gonna send these guys."
Yeah.
We'll send these guys. We'll play 3 deep, 3 under, where we're carrying the seam. So it basically turns into cover 1. You're not really putting us in a position to put any strain on Troy Reader or Leonard Floyd for dropping into coverage, and they're just getting after you now.
Yeah.
That's like
that scares me.
Worst case scenario. Because
Yeah.
there is no way, there is no scenario.
No, it would be Burrow just doing a thing.
Where they can protect enough against these guys, right? Like that's how you end up with Von Miller winning 2 Super Bowl MVPs in his career, right? Is just being able to tear off up the edge, against their tackles, So from that perspective, I have real concerns about what it is that Cincinnati is going to do if it's not just going to be like what it was when they played the Chiefs in the regular season. It was like, okay, we see one-on-one on the outside. I'm just going to attack Darius Williams all game. And maybe that's what it turns into. And there's going to be opportunity to do that. San Francisco tried to do that. They just missed their opportunities. And they had a lot going after Darius Williams on those in-breaking routes. So maybe they try to lean into that. But again, like, and this is something that we just saw in the NFC title game, like the Rams defensively have finally figured out a way to squeeze you into doing the one thing that you really don't want to do against them. And they were able to do it against the 49ers, which is maybe an offense built more so than any other in the NFL to try to protect their offense from having to be in these obvious passing situations. And Cincinnati kind of leans into, passing the ball, especially down the field. So there's a lot on Burrow's shoulders. He has obviously been able to handle a lot of this, but I feel like I've just watched this story in the NFL happen so many times where the quarterback has, risen up to the occasion against in all these unideal circumstances, and then he runs into this great defense that's built to, punish an offense that does what Cincinnati does. And I go all season saying, "Oh, well, the quarterback's handled it all year. No big deal. He'll handle it again." Just to see him not be able to do that in this scenario. Knowing my luck, Joe Burrow is finally going to be the quarterback that makes this happen. But I just don't think
scary.
that.
It's very scary.
At least just on its face, it does not make sense to me to expect that that's what's going to happen when these teams play each other. I would have to see it. He would have to have like an out-of-body, otherworldly type of experience, I think, in order to be able to win against the Rams defense consistently. On the other side of the ball, how do you feel about I don't want to cut you off if you still have the Bengals.
No, I was just going to add in the point that the Bengals did play Brandon Staley's defense this year against the Chargers.
Right.
And, there's obviously a lot of similarities there, between the Rams this year and the Chargers this year on defense. But, they didn't do what I would have done, which is throw that quick game against the 5.
Right. They stayed vertical.
Yeah, whenever they saw 5 down, they ran the football.
Right.
And they called deeper pass plays. So it's like, all right.
And there's
if
some
you do that against the Rams, you're fucked. Sorry.
Right. There's some hairiness in that game with all the turnovers, right? Because I think they had 2 picks and a fumble or whatever, in the first 5 or so possessions before climbing back into the game. But I do think, to your point, right, if we're using that as a reference, and obviously there's talent differences there, but still, if that's the approach, you can't do that against these guys, man.
That scares me. And again, like maybe the ballers ball out, and
Right.
I'm talking about Burrow, Teague, Chase, and Boyd. It's not. It's just not. It when your best thing is, hey, let's just run a lot of quick game. Boy,
Especially
boy,
like when you know what's on the other side, because
boy.
I really, really, really like the way that this Rams offense matches up against the Bengals defense.
Yeah, I don't have any like in depth takes other than if Stafford plays like he has been the past 2 months, it's over.
Simple as
But
that, honestly.
they've been so good. They got a tip ball here. They got a tip ball there. I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe, but I mean, the adjustment. I think that some of the adjustments that they have made throughout the playoffs that has helped lead them up to this point, I don't think are as viable against this offense. Right? Like, there is no adjustment of saying like, "Hey, we're just going to kind of give up the pass rush against the Rams." You can't do that. Not with the way that Stafford's been working in the pocket.
So the two things that I saw in the last two games, and I don't remember what they did against the Raiders, but against Tennessee, heavy type of run offense, they went to their 5 down look,
Yes,
and Tennessee had so much space in the play action game that should have won them the game.
and Tannehill
And Tannehill threw
missed.
a pick,
Yeah,
and he missed the deep one and whatever. That's like you're not playing that against the
I was
Rams
about to
because
say.
they're a drop back passing team now.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
and
Goff era, no
I
problem.
was to say, and Stafford ain't Tannehill.
No. So that's not an answer. And then the next answer is like, oh, we don't like the answer they had against the Chiefs, which we were talking about, which they drop 8 or drop 7 plus a spy. Like, that's not the answer too, because you give him time in the pocket, he's going to make you
He's
pay.
gonna cut you up. Yeah,
He'll cut
he's
you up
really
from the
gonna.
pocket. So I don't know. I don't.
Now, I mean, they did cover. They covered extremely well in the second half against the Chiefs. So, like,
Yeah.
again, I don't want to rob the. I don't want to rob the Bengals of what they do well or what they've done well because there are some things that they've done well. But to me, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking one thing that I think we know about Sean McVay, and it irks me at times, is at his core, what he really, really still wants to do is a lot of the fake offense stuff that they did with Goff, in that era of the Rams, because it's effective. Like, it's very effective. And we saw that kind of keep them afloat when they couldn't get the explosive plays last night, or not last night, but Sunday night against the Niners. They got back into, hey, outside zone to stay on schedule, running screens on second and long to get back on schedule. And I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for that early in this game because we know that the Bengals like to play with a lot of depth in zone coverage, right? Like, so maybe they are able to contain Odell. Maybe you don't get like a 9 reception for a 115-yard game from Odell like we just saw, or anything in that neighborhood.
Then Cup is going for 350.
Exactly.
Like
That's
then
the thing.
it's tough.
And if you're taking away both, then Cam Akers is going to average
Yeah.
6 yards a carry,
I
right?
don't know
Like,
what Higby's situation is, but
I
he's
think that
obviously
they said that
important.
there's no structural damage from
Okay.
the notification I just saw. I mean, we'll see kind of how he
Yeah.
practices throughout the week, right? Because that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be 100%. And having this week between now and the Super Bowl will be a help for getting him healthy too. So we'll see how this goes. And we'll have plenty of time to really dig in depth about like all of this matchup between, because I'm interested in like how Logan Wilson matches up with Higby on the inside. Um, but like again, first look, coming off of what I just saw from the Rams, I don't like this one, man. I
I'm
just don't like
nervous,
this.
man.
It's
I,
been great
I
for Burrow. Like, this is not. This is. I need to make sure I articulate this. This is not me being anti-Burrow by saying that I just don't like this matchup. Like, I legitimately, just for football reasons, don't
it's
think
bad.
that. I just, yeah. If the Bengals were playing the Niners, I would think, okay, I could see it. I think I could see it. It'd still be tough. It'd still be really, really tough. But I can maybe see it because you would be able to hang, I think, because of the 49ers offense. With the Rams and the way that I think that they're going to be able to score playing a glorified home game indoors, you're going to have
No.
all the conditions are leading up
Oh
to
god.
an explosive performance from the Rams. But I'll continue to look at it and we'll see. But yeah, like I said, first look right now, I'm feeling like the Rams will have a lot of the looks offensively they want, and defensively, unless the Bengals are able to mix in some of the quick game, RPO, screen game, perimeter run stuff like you were talking about, I just don't love this one.
Tough, man. It's not a. I want Burrow to win a Super Bowl, but
Might not be this
oh
one. It
god,
just might
it's
not be this one.
tough. It's tough. This is not this. It's like yeah, it's not. I mean, the Niners, they wouldn't have been a good matchup for them either.
Right.
Defensively, like they would
Defensively.
have much rather have seen Jimmy Garoppolo on the other side of the field than Matt Stafford.
1,000%. Yeah.
But either one would have been bad matchups. Like I said, I think schematically, it's not a bad matchup versus the Rams defense. It's just like
Personnel.
the personnel on the trenches is so bad. All right, Deontay, did you know that roses are red and violets are blue, and you should not let a wild pube wreck you? Valentine's Day is right around the corner. We're almost in February. And Manscaped is here for you with the best tools to get your balls ready for the special occasion. This V-Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. You know, like I said this the whole year when I do this Manscaped ad read is like the products are legit. The razor is great. It has a light on it, just in case the electricity goes out while you're in the shower. You're still good. The nose and ear hair trimmer for all of us 30 plus people who have those issues is great. And yeah, everything else is really good. The stuff, the creams and the ointments and all that stuff is great. So yeah, go to manscaped.com. Promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day. All right, before we get out of here, a couple quick notes on coaching carousel. 3 names we want to talk about. Well, 4 names, I guess. Josh McDaniels, rumored to be the next Raiders head coach, seems like it's pretty close.
It seems like a basically done dealish. Like we got a lot of reporting about the GM hire they made. Ziegler, I believe, that he obviously has a very close relationship with McDaniels, having both worked, with New England. So it seems like they've got their GM head coach package deal together. What's your? I kind of want to boil this down to one sentence because it's not official, and we need to see what happens with this roster, anyways. But looking at it right now, kind of what's your first reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Carr has become good enough. He's at the level that it kind of doesn't matter. Like what you go from Gruden to McDaniels, very different type of offense. I don't think it matters. I think he's good enough to make it work. So so it's more for me. It's more like, all right, good for McDaniels because of the issues he went through having to have like Tim Tebow as a starting quarterback in Denver. That was never going to work out no matter how good of an offensive coordinator you are. To this, where Carr is obviously clearly playing his best football right now, and I think that. So yeah, it's a good fit in that sense for McDaniels. Like, just go there and find a quarterback. You find a quarterback,
right? A quarterback that's not just functional. That I think can actually
be
with this dude.
And they need to fix the offensive line because it's bad. And they're gonna retool a little bit at receiver. That's for sure. But other than that, I think it's good. I mean, the defense sucks. You hope that you find a guy like whoever the defensive coordinator is going to be, who. I don't know what system it is. Just like makes the sum better than the individual parts.
Yes,
that's because it's not very good right now outside of like Max Crosby. Yeah, so that's kind of my thing with McDaniels. How do you feel about that?
Very similarly, I think it's like if I'm to look at it from the player's perspective, for Carr, this is great. Because I think if you're Carr and you're looking at what Josh McDaniels has done with quarterbacks over the years, you have every reason to feel like he's going to maximize you because that's just been what he's done, right? Like, even if you're separating his time with Brady, like we 100% saw a maximization of Mac Jones this past year. We saw him maximize as much as you could maximize a Tim Tebow. And I think that this offense, beyond just the quarterbacks, like I think this is going to be a dream for Waller and Renfro. Like if you're Renfro, dude, this is about to be the best time of your life. The best, few next year stretches of your life. Like you're going to get featured. And same for Waller. Like for as versatile a skill set as Waller has, this again is the exact kind of offense that you want to be in, where you're going to have a coach that's like extremely committed, not only to getting you the ball, but trying to quote unquote hide you and find different ways to feed you the ball, creating issues for the defense to where if they're not accounting for you properly, you're really going to eat. So I love that combination for those guys. And I think that, if you're Josh Jacobs, and I think that he has a skill set that can be featured even more within this offense than what it has been, instead of just as some downhill runner in these uber heavy personnel packages, the way that like Gruden had it set up. I think that there's more to be found with him as a receiver out of the backfield. I think that you can play a little bit more spread and still use him if they wanted to. So I think that the versatility and the way that he's used personnel over the years gives me a lot of reason to be encouraged. And to your point, like whatever's available in terms of defensive coordinators right now, they've got to go try to get the best one out there and just patchwork this thing through at least in year one and really try to make it over along the way. They have some nice pieces. I mean, you can do a lot worse than having Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue as your edge rushers, man. You can do a lot worse than that. The linebacking core...
You can't really do much worse with the other positions, though.
True. That's what I was about to get to, like, the linebacking core, yeah. I like Javon Merrick. I like Merrick as a safety.
I agree. The young kid. Nate Hobbs graded well for us. He was pretty high on PFF WAR.
Right.
Very protected player. You play a strong curl to flat in the Gus Bradley system,
and that's all you're gonna do. Yeah,
that's all you're gonna do. Protected.
Yeah, and the way that he plays it, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of plays that you're just out there covering grass anyway. So
sail technique to the sideline. Get your butt to the sideline.
You can't be wrong. More times than not, it's really hard to be wrong as an underneath zone defender in this defense. But I do think addressing corners will be a big thing. That's the last point I had, is just that like addressing the cornerback position, I think will be a big priority for them. A major priority for them. But I can see a very clear roadmap for them being successful. Now that's all relative to what the division is, because you're dealing with some monsters, right? That you got to see 6 times a year. But I think that there's a pathway for them to continue to be competitive in the division. And honestly, given the fact that you have a bunch of franchise quarterbacks in that division, that's about as good as you can ask for right now.
Harbaugh, Jimmy, coming back, I think too much smoke in the water. No,
I was going to say...
That's not the expression, but whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
So
you're taking this as serious, right?
I think so, and it looks like it's Miami now. It was the Vikings. Now it looks like Miami. I kind of hope it's the Saints, but whatever. Here's my thing with Harbaugh, and I think we talked about it last time, so we'll keep it kind of short. He might have the best resume of a football coach in the last 30 years.
Especially of a young one.
It's better than I was going to say it's better than Belichick.
Here's what I will say, because I'm looking up his age, because I think if you're looking at like coaches who are younger than 60, right, that don't have like 30 years worth of experience, like, yeah, you can make an argument that this is like a top 3 resume. Short of a Super Bowl, what can you say that he has not done?
No elite quarterback.
At any point, any level, any point, basically.
He had Josh Johnson at San Diego. Okay, maybe that was elite for the relative
to the competition. Okay, you could say that because he's a pro.
But then I
mean, obviously, you get the best years out of Colin, right?
Yeah, like you get the best years out of Colin. I believe he leaves Stanford before Luck. Am I crazy with that?
Let me look.
Yeah, look that up while I'm talking. I believe he must have recruited him, but I don't know if maybe they got the Orange Bowl year was Luck.
Yes. So he leaves in 2010, so he gets early.
Falling apart.
Well, no, I mean, he gets early Luck, right? Like,
right, okay.
You're like redshirt freshman Luck, basically.
See, I think maybe, I don't know. Anyways, the point is to do
But he got the best out of him. He got the best out of him. So that point stands.
The point is to do what he's done at different stops. That, to me, is why the resume is top-notch and, like, it's tough to surpass it. Because you turned around these programs 5 straight times. It's crazy. You're not supposed to do that. And when you look at, like, Sean Payton just retired, Tom Brady just retired, and you look at Belichick, And it's like, Belichick, even before the Patriots had good runs as a DC, like really good runs as a DC, and his time and as Cleveland head coach was actually very good. So okay, that's great. But it's like a lot of these guys are tied to elite quarterbacks. He is not.
Right.
And again, even he's just not. And that to me is now the question is, can you do it a sixth time?
Right.
I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. Like as much as he is crazy good, I would not bet on him doing it.
It's hard to do.
Sixth time, man. Hard to do it once. It is generational to do it 5 times. So doing it a sixth time, I don't know, man.
I mean,
that'd be tough.
When you throw in the fact that, like, if we're to take this Miami interest at its face, right, and treat it as real, and to your point about not having an elite quarterback, you're inheriting a quarterback with a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
I don't hate Tua, but I mean, it's just a flawed quarterback, man. Like in the system that they had right now, I thought I got about as much out of Tua as you can get right now. So, it's interesting. It's just going to be interesting to see, like, the Miami thing kind of threw me for a loop because if I'm judging that roster against Minnesota's, I would think that he would maybe want to go someplace that's a little bit closer right now than to take on the pressure, to your point, of trying to build another successful program or successful organization. But it does seem like, to your point, there is enough quote unquote smoke in the water, I think, to take seriously about his interest in the NFL. I don't think that you take this many interviews in this short a time period unless you are really, really interested in seeing what the NFL has to offer. If it's Miami, what does a turnaround look like there to you?
Boy.
Because to me, I think that, like, hey man, 9-8.
Yeah.
If you hang around 9-8, like, that's probably good enough to get you in the wild card, and I think that that's success for what Miami's at right now.
I know there might have been issues personality wise between Greer and the owner versus Brian Flores. Now, a lot of it comes out after they fire him to make him seem like a worse guy than he is. So there's got to take some of it.
That's an element of it, right?
Yeah, but I keep going back to the same thing with Miami. What they did schematically was perfect on offense and on defense for the players they had. And you could have grown with that. And again, if there were issues personality-wise that you had to fire Flores, okay, fine. But man, I thought they were building something. So yeah, I think in terms of wins and losses, like 10 wins is a turnaround enough, I think, with that roster. But yeah, you have to figure it. I mean, Chris Greer's got to start hitting on some people in the draft. Or maybe, like, I don't know. I don't really have. I have, like, my take on, like, development is weird because it's like, they developed a player. Well, the kid was probably developing.
He's probably really good. Yeah, he's probably just really good.
And I say it as a football coach. You know what I mean?
No, I'm 100% in the realm of it's not me developing the guy. Maybe I just put him in the place that features his skill set the best.
Right. I think that's a good way to put it. All right, so let's get off that. Last one we talk about, the Saints have interviewed Doug Peterson alongside Dennis Allen, Aaron Glenn, who used to be the Saints DB coach, and someone else I don't remember. Doug Peterson back. You feeling it?
For the Saints, yes. For the Saints, yes.
God, it would be such a different offense than I'm used to.
As Doug Peterson, I don't know if I'm taking that. I don't know if that's the gig I want. As the Saints, I think that's a windfall in terms of transitioning from one coach to another. Especially because I think with bringing in Doug Peterson, you're also accessing all the potential because of the Andy Reid coaching tree, right? So there's probably potential to get more quality coaches on staff as well if you bring in a guy who's connected to that tree. So there is potential there. I mean, for you, my question for you is, like, are you ready for the RPO extravaganza that's on the way?
It's funny. Like, I was so mad at Sean for not putting RPOs in when he didn't have Drew over 2019 and 2020, and now 2021. Like, so I'm into that. I'm just like, man, I'm not ready for it to end. Give me Dennis Allen and Carmichael. You know what I mean?
Look
Like
at you,
keep the
man.
band together.
Get off the drug. Put it down. It's
Just
over.
not ready. Now, Aaron Glenn would be great. It would be a weird situation though. He's the Saints DB coach, or maybe the safeties coach, something like that, going to Detroit with Dan Campbell to be the DC, and then coming back as the head coach while Dennis Allen, I guess, would still be your defensive coordinator. I mean, it still it works out because at the NFL level, like everyone has their piece to play, and then the hierarchy is a little more muddied. I think I could be wrong about this than it is probably at the high school level that I'm used to, at the college level that I'm used to. But I would love Aaron Glenn to come back. He's man, he say it. He developed Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus Williams, and it made PJ a real player and all that stuff. So whatever. I'm good with a whole bunch of different scenarios with this, and Doug Peterson too. All right, last thing we want to talk about. Last thing. Aaron Rodgers is, let's say he doesn't play for the Green Bay Packers next year. If he goes to the Broncos with Nathaniel Hackett, we know the offense is what the offense is going to look like. It'll be the same, I would imagine, give or take. But if he goes to a different team like Pittsburgh, let's say, and they have an offensive coordinator like Matt Canada, like has this LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers offense, has it combined enough for you to say if you're the offensive coordinator of a team that Aaron Rodgers is coming to, scrap my whole ideas, scrap everything that I've done up to this point. We are running at the new Aaron Rodgers offense?
No, because
I wasn't expecting that. I honestly wasn't expecting that.
I'm saying no from a coaching perspective, maybe, because I think that what we saw, particularly in his time with LaFleur, is Rodgers being amenable to basically any change within the offense and still being able to produce at an elite level. So we saw LaFleur transition from not knowing if he really had enough up front to invest everything into the run game. So using the RPO out of the spread as a means to get guys of football in the quick game area and open up lanes to run the football in, and they were really good at that. And then you take that and turn that into what they were this year, which is basically like, hey, we'll get in an under center if we feel like you're too weak up front to stop the run. But for the most part, we're in the gun, and we're not just in the gun to do RPO stuff. We're in the gun to take deep shots down the field. And they were really good at that, right? Like, and he was able to basically change a mentality immediately. Now, what I will say, and this is something that I've thought about, not just with like the Steelers as a hypothetical, but I was throwing around the Colts as another hypothetical with our friend Justice Mosqueda, right? Because he's the closest out of all of us to Aaron Rodgers in terms of analysis and how much time he spends on him. And my initial thought was, I don't know if the RPO, if an RPO offense as heavily as Indianapolis is out of the gun is the best use for me in terms of taste for Aaron Rodgers' skill set. But if you're telling me that you're going to give him maybe the second best running back in the NFL and what they were able to do on the ground this past year, and they've got some of the pieces in Pittman and Hilton, assuming health, right? Because obviously he had injury issues and he's kind of getting up there in age, so we'll see. I really like Doyle as a tight end and all of what they have, in terms of their receiving core and what they have up front. Like, I think that he can operate in that offense too. I mean, obviously a hell of a lot better than the quarterback that they just had. So I think that he can work in anything. For me, as a fan and not as a coach, yes, I want to see him take this LaFleur offense wherever he goes. I want to see the deep overs. I want to see the dagger plays. I want to see, being able to work those slot fades or being able to, attack those one-on-one matchups whenever he finds them. That, to me, is the most pleasing way to watch Aaron Rodgers. But I think that with what we've seen of him since Mike McCarthy left Green Bay, you can basically drop him in anything and you're going to get damn near MVP level play. For you, is that what you want to see? Is this offense or what Reich does, what Canada does as a hypothetical, or do you want to just stick with the LaFleur thing no matter where he's at?
Tough question, because I'm with you in that I love watching him in this offense. And it just always, I think about Peyton Manning going to Denver and Adam Gase saying, yeah, this is the offense. And then, like, the rumor is, like, I don't know how true this is. The rumor is that, like, he gets there in like January, February, whatever, and they work with Gase, and Peyton works with Gase, and blah blah blah. And then by training camp, they're like, nope, we're not doing this. It's Peyton Manning offense time. So, I wonder if that would happen, like especially in Pittsburgh, which is probably the furthest from what he would be doing. If that would be the case, the Reich thing could. There's some similarities, especially what they want to do in the gun, for sure. So yeah, I would like to see him run that offense, but I also do agree with you the way he's playing. You can probably fit him up anywhere. All right, I'm done talking. I don't want to talk anymore.
Same. See you all on
Perfect.
Friday.
See ya. Bye.